Hello and welcome to my channel. What is Hey Bales doing? I'm Bailey, also known as Bales, and this is the start of a series. So my husband and I, we currently live in Houston, Texas, but we are moving to New York City and we are so excited. But the reason I have a little series going is because this is a wild transition, y'all. Like, this is not like any of the other moving I've done before, even not like what he's done before. So a little backstory, I am born and raised in Texas. I grew up south of Houston in this small little town. I lived there most of my life. Moved up to the big city being Houston, about 10 years ago, actually. Oh, no. 11. This would make 11 years in October if I were staying until October. My wonderful husband was born and raised in India. He grew up in a small town also, and then he ended up living in Mumbai for a little while, which, if you don't know, Mumbai is basically like LA and New York combined on steroids. So Mumbai has, I think they have about 25 million people who live there. Wild. And I say they're like New York and LA because they have the Bollywood, which is, India's version of Hollywood, right? So all the actors, the movie industry, that kind of thing. And then they also have like the fast life of like the financial district and Wall Street type, all that stuff. So that's Mumbai for you in a nutshell. And then from there, he actually came to the United States by way of San Diego, California, where he lived for 2 years doing his master's degree until he wound up in Houston for work. So why are we moving to New York City, you ask? Which I know is a huge question because most New Yorkers are going to Texas. It's not really the other way around, especially in this economy, huh? So I actually just graduated with my associate's degree in fashion design. I am so thrilled and excited. But what's more is I'm planning to apply to the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is located in Manhattan, for the fall of 2026. So we're going to go ahead and move up there now. That's a whole nother story for another day. Right now, we're going to talk about the whole process of moving to New York. And this specific video, we're going to focus on what it's like to find an apartment up there. Because y'all, it is wild. It is not your average, just look it up online. There is so much involved with it. So we're going to talk about my experiences with it, mine and my husband's, I should say. The different apps that we used in order to find apartments, what it was like when we actually showed up at some of these listings, because we went to more than one, and also just some tips on all the different kinds of things you're going to need in order to even apply for an apartment. Because y'all, I am telling you, it is totally different world in New York City. And we don't even live on the island. We're not even moving to Manhattan. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we're going to start with where it all began, which was looking online for an apartment. Okay, so we are in Greece on our honeymoon, and we purposely left the last day and a half available so we could start searching for apartments online. So the thing with New York City is we are looking to sublet, which means we are going to lease an apartment that is owned by somebody else, usually a private person. So with that, you have to be very quick because they go really fast. So we spent the last 2 days looking up apartments on StreetEasy. StreetEasy is super great because we can see how close these apartments are to subways and especially how close they are to FIT. That said, we have already reached out to some people and the apartment was rented by the time they responded back within like 8 hours or so. Nuts, that's how fast these go. So this has been very interesting. We're both a little bit stressed about this, but we're also excited. We are flying to New York tonight from Greece. We're going to stay there until Thursday. So we have about 4 days to go visit these places in person. Which I will say, visit them in person. Even though I haven't done this yet, I already know from people who live in the New York City area that it is super important to see it in person because the pictures are not always accurate. And also what's crazy is none of these listings on StreetEasy have the square footage of these apartments. So that's something that we're very curious about, and that's the main reason we're gonna go see them in person, because we don't know how big these places actually are. I actually had one person respond and say, we can do a video tour now, and I was like, no, we will only view in person. And I am gonna get back to you on that, but I'm probably 100% right that you should visit in person. But we will see, time will tell. So let's get going and let's check out some apartments. Okay, so before I show you some footage of a few of the apartments that we viewed, I was absolutely correct. I have to tell you the story of the first apartment we viewed. So unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the inside of that one. I do have some footage of the outside that I will peep here and there. But oh my God, I was absolutely correct that you need to go view these places in person. So here is what happened. We scheduled this first listing viewing, I guess it was called an open house is what she actually called it. We scheduled it through StreetEasy. We're communicating back and forth, and then we finally, on the day of, we get a text, and the text says to stay downstairs when we first get there, and that the showing agent will bring us up when it's time to view the apartment. We're like, okay, whatever. So us being us, we arrived early because we also wanted to check out the neighborhood too, because that is key, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So as we're walking up, we're noticing that like the neighborhood's not that great. Like there's literally trash all along the sides of the road, but it's very weird because we are walking down the street and we just cross over. We're on the same block, mind you, like we're literally, we're on the same street, but like we cross over to the next like block, and it's just trash. And the trash keeps going until boom, that's the apartment that we're gonna look at right up there, and there's just trash everywhere. And we're like, okay, maybe it's just because today's Sunday and trash day is tomorrow, or I don't know. But it was really suspicious that there was only trash on that block, because later on we walked down and kept going further and there was no trash. It was just specifically that block, which that was already like points deducted from our little system that we had, which I'll go over that here later on in this video. And we are standing there, we notice more and more people are coming up and coming up and coming up. And it's just like a mob of people outside waiting to go look at this apartment. So first, let me tell you that this apartment was located in Brooklyn. I don't know what exact area of Brooklyn, but it was in Brooklyn, more like south of Brooklyn, somewhere in that area. That it was a 2-bed, 2-bath, and it was $2,100 a month, which is cheap for New York, y'all. Like $2,100. We hardly found anything in that price range that looked decent. And the photos looked decent. Like it looked nice. Like the walls were nice and bright white, and we weren't sure about the size because you really can't tell from the photos. And again, there's no square footage on any of these listings. So we are like, okay, we'll check it out. More and more people keep coming. I was like, surely we're not all going to go up at the same time. Like it's one apartment. She's going to just come down and do one by one, right? Like that's what I'm thinking. This little Texas girl who's never bought a house, never gone to real estate showings. I don't know what's going on. That was the idea that I had in my head, and boy, it was wrong. It was so wrong, because she came out and literally was like, okay, come on everybody. And it was a literal mob of people going up the stairs. So this apartment was on the 4th floor, and there were only 4 floors total. So it was the top floor, but there's no elevator, which is very common in New York, guys. So like, don't panic. That's pretty common. But we get all the way up there, and oh my God. So the woman who was still living there was there, of course, because she needs to be there for these things, which I didn't know at the time was a thing either. I thought they would wait until the tenant vacated to then show it. Nope. I was wrong about that too. So this poor woman is there, and it's a mob of people crowding in, guys. I really wish I would have got you photos and videos because it was nuts. There was probably like 30 people in this tiny apartment, because this 2-bedroom, 1-bath was so tiny. It was so freaking tiny. It was probably like 700 square feet for the whole thing. It was small. And let me be the first to tell you that it was not even the apartment that they had the photos of the listing. I was 1000% right. So we left because I was looking at the walls and I was like, ooh, these are real dingy. Like, they're yellow, there's scuffs everywhere. Like, it was just not what I was thinking it was going to look like, because it did not look like the photos. So when we left and went back downstairs, I pulled the listing back up, and sure enough, some of the rooms that they showed on the listing, they were not in that apartment, because the windows, the layouts were different. So they literally took photos from a different apartment in the same building and used them. Yeah, so that is reason number one why you need to always go look at these in person, because that was deceptive. Like, that was deceitful, deceptive, whatever. Like, if I would have just booked it online and walked on in, I'd have been real disappointed, because it was not even the same layout that they were showing online versus in person. And man, like, there were washer and dryers downstairs in the basement, which is nice, but y'all, those stairs were steep, and walking up 4 staircases every day, that plus like the dinginess and just the neighborhood, it was just not our vibe. Not at all our vibe. And so we went ahead and passed on that, and we checked out a few others afterwards. So I'm going to show you some footage of a few of the other ones, and then we're going to talk about the success story. But I want to show you this footage, guys, so you can really get a good idea of what these apartments are actually looking like when you get there, because the photos do not do these things justice, y'all. The photos make them look so big and spacious, and they are not. Let me be the first to tell you that they are not, which is, yet again, even if the photos look great and they are the photos of the exact space, which we did come across. It just so happened that the very first one we went to was the one where the photos didn't match. But if this is the case and you are going and you are like, don't be surprised when you walk in and you're like, dang, the photo made it look so spacious, but like, it's not. That's normal. That's real normal. We experience that basically everywhere. So let's look at some footage from a few of these apartments real quick, and you can see what I'm talking about.
Roof access, everything.
Parking spot too?
So parking is extra.
Yeah.
But it's like 200 something, 250 I think a month.
There's plenty of rooftop storage too.
You can, at 1620 euro, right? Okay, so per pound, 8597.
I did just want to pause and take a moment to let you guys know that this was actually a really great apartment. What was cool about it, there was no pet fee, so we could bring Duke. It was a 2-bed, 1-bath. It was actually pretty spacious for a 2-bed, 1-bath. The only issue is that it was right at our max budget, so we were kind of iffy about that. And we also didn't love the neighborhood. We didn't hate it. It was a decent neighborhood. We definitely could have, survived there easily. But we just really, really loved the neighborhood in Astoria that we saw earlier that same day. So we did put this on a maybe list. We'll think about it in maybe like a backup. But guys, this was a really great apartment. And 2-bed, 1-bath at $2,800. That's really not that bad. It's actually a pretty decent price. We unfortunately just really weren't looking to pay that much. So let's check out yet another apartment. Interesting. Nice light fixtures. All right, it's 2-bed. Big window, lots of light. Tiny ass closet. Oh, in New York City. Wow, of course. Very New York-like. Oh, this bedroom is bigger. Definitely the master. Yeah. 2 windows. Another tiny ass closet. And the bathroom. Not bad, but minimal storage. Does this even open? Oh, it does. Oh, wow, fancy. We're currently in an apartment. The realtor is actually not physically here, which is so wild. They gave us the code to get the key, and so we're just checking the place out ourselves. But what sucks about this place is it's 13-minute walk from the metro. That is the farthest walk we've had to do, and the reason that's a problem for us specifically is because I'm planning to apply to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, where I will be lugging loads of supplies to school, and a 13-minute walk just to get to the start of the whole journey at the metro is rough. I think we've seen like maybe 7 minutes max from all the other places we were at, so that's the biggest con of it all. But, you know, this is a 2-bed, 1-bath at a very decent price, so that kind of sucks that it's so far. The neighborhood's okay. I mean, listen to that, that's pretty loud. The other apartments we've toured haven't had that much noise. So, yeah, let's move on to the next one. Actually, one cool thing that's a huge pro, storage spaces. Each apartment unit gets their own, and from what I can tell, they're pretty dang big. Plus you can store your bike down here. That is a huge pro that we haven't seen at any other apartment complex. So that kind of sucks that this is a bit too far for us, so it's not gonna work out. Okay, so before I tell you about the story of finding our apartment, the actual one we leased, I do want to let you guys know a couple things. So some of y'all might be wondering like, okay, well, why are you using StreetEasy or Zillow, and why are you subletting? So, subletting is the affordable way to live in New York, y'all. It just is. You can find the cookie cutter apartments, is what I call them, which is the apartments you find everywhere else. And you know what I mean. If you've ever lived in an apartment, you know that you go to the leasing office and they show you all the different layouts and you say, okay, we want a 2-bed, 2-bath. And they're like, great, we have 2A and 2B, and 2B is usually a little bit bigger than 2A and a little bit different layout and a little bit more money, and it's cookie cutter because you can just select from that, and then you can go tour an empty one and say, yes, I would like this layout. This is the date I'm moving. Do you have anything available in that time frame? That, my friends, is what I call cookie cutter apartments, which are luxury apartments in New York City. And you can find those. Oh, hell yeah, you can find those. They got some nice ones too, but you know what you're going to pay for them? You're going to pay a minimum of like $4,000 a month for a studio. Now, I will say we did find a couple of these more cookie cutter styles. We did find a few in our budget on StreetEasy actually. But the issue is that they're so small. So even though they were in our budget, we found a 1-bedroom that was, I believe it was $2,600, brand new building. They had just built it last year, and man, floor to ceiling windows, everything, updated appliances, central air conditioning. We'll talk about that in just a second. And oh, it was nice. But the 1-bedroom that was $2,600 was 500 square feet. Guys, that is so tiny for a husband, a wife, and their dog to live in. Like, that's just so tiny. I lived in a 425 square foot apartment, my very first one, as an 18-year-old. And I remember thinking that, like, oh, well, that was spacious. Yeah, that's because it was only me. And we looked at the photos of this luxury apartment, and it was not going to work. There was literally nowhere for a living room. Like, no, you couldn't even put a TV on the wall. The way that it was lined up, like, it was not going to give us the homey feeling we need. And that's personally what we want, right? Because there's two of us and our dog. We need some space. So because of that, we were like, okay, we're going to pass on that. So like I said, you can find some, but it's really, really difficult, and especially depending on what exactly you're looking for and what your budget is. Because like I said, we were shocked. We were shocked to find this luxury apartment in our price range, but there's always a catch. So another app that we used was also Zillow. So if you haven't heard of Zillow, Zillow is actually used a lot for real estate, and it's also used for renting, usually homes, right? So if you've ever used the app before, then you know that you can look up houses anywhere. Well, in New York City, condos are all over it. So when I'm talking about an apartment, it's actually a condo. Somebody owns the unit and we are going to rent it from them. Just like somebody owns a house that you might rent from them. Exact same concept, except in New York, there's less houses and more condominiums that are just filled with all the different, condos. So let's go ahead and talk about our story, our success with that, and just how that all played out. Because this is really, guys, this is so cool. I'm actually super excited to share this with you. Before that, though, let me give you guys a little bit more details on what you can expect when you are looking at subletting an apartment in New York. So I mentioned earlier that elevators are not common, right? And so somebody had told me that. Somebody who grew up living in New York, he told me, he was like, you'll be lucky if you find a building with an elevator in it. And he was not wrong. There were many different apartments we reached out about. What they told us, it's third floor, no elevator. Is that okay? So that's a very common thing you might run into. Another thing that we didn't realize was also going to be not an issue, but just different, right? Different than what we're used to here in Texas, is that because a lot of these buildings were built pre-war, pre-1950, pre-whatever. Like some of these buildings literally were built in like the early 1900s and they're still standing to this day and in use. They don't have central air conditioning. Not a thing back then. So that is something that is not actually an issue, guys, because really you just have to get the window units. And apparently it is so common that when we were shocked about it, people were like, no, like this is normal in New York. Like get over yourself, you're Texan. Like, so don't be shocked and don't turn down an apartment because it doesn't have central AC. You just buy a unit and you will cool your ass down and everything will be fine. You do want to make sure though that they have heat, because I don't know that you can buy a heating unit that would heat the whole room. I do know for a fact you can with the AC, and that is completely normal and easy to deal with. So another thing that you need to be aware of is laundry. So lots of buildings have a laundry room down in the basement. Guys, that is the best way to do it, because if you cannot get one in the unit, which is really, really rare, let me tell you, especially if you're in a budget like ours. So I actually haven't mentioned this before, I just realized it, but our absolute max was $3,000, absolute max. We did not want to pay more than $3,000 per month, but really we wanted more towards $2,800. And we wanted less. So in that price range, I think we maybe looked at one unit that had a washer and dryer in it. Maybe two, but for sure one. Shocking. Like Shocking because here in Texas, you find them everywhere, right? Well, what we actually did to help prepare ourselves was we've not had a washer and dryer the entire time we've been living in our current apartment. So I'll go over that later with some more like tips and tricks on getting accustomed to the new life. But yeah, so don't expect to find a washer and dryer. Don't expect to have AC. And also closet space, very, very small. So what you really need to focus on is what matters most. AC, like I said, is a fixable thing, right? Do you really need an elevator? Depends on what floor the apartment is on. What, like, are you going to be carrying a bunch of heavy stuff all the time? Do you have a dog that can't walk up and down the stairs? What's happening here? So does an elevator matter? Yes or no? Laundry. As long as you have it in the building, guys, I think that is beautiful, because if you have to leave the building to go do laundry in the rain, like honestly, that was a no-go for me. I told my husband I really want there to be laundry in the basement wherever we live. And then another factor to look into is the neighborhood. So I had been told previously, again, by a friend who lived in New York for a very long time, that you want to love your borough. So you want to live in an area that you love, so that when you're home, you can walk out the street and you can enjoy where you're going. If you're going to stay in your borough all weekend, you're going to love the businesses around it. You're just going to want to be there. And that, my friends, is so, so true. So from there, let's go ahead and lead into the story of finding our actual apartment that we signed the lease for, because all of this, you'll see, plays together. So finding this apartment, we found it when we were actually still in Greece, you know, my earlier video, and we reached out to them like the day it was put on the market. And the guy told us, okay, you can come view it at 2 p.m. on Sunday. That's the only time I can do it because somebody's living there currently and they have to be home when I bring people in. Okay, cool, whatever. We'll do that, no biggie. Again, I didn't realize how normal that was at the time. I thought maybe that was a one-off. Whatever. So we went and viewed that very first apartment I told you about, you know, earlier, the one that was like, whoa, this is not what we were thinking we were getting into when we got here. And we immediately go from there in Brooklyn to Astoria. Now, if you're not familiar with the boroughs, everybody knows Brooklyn, right? The Brooklyn Bridge, like Brooklyn is kind of like Houston in the sense of there's really good and then there's like hood. If you don't know this about Houston, guys, we call our city half hood, half good because it's just a hodgepodge of the good and the hood all mixed together. And that's kind of what Brooklyn felt like. It just kind of felt like a mixture of all of it. So we get on the subway and we get our asses over to Astoria. So Astoria is closer to the river. It's actually closer to the Bronx. It's not on Manhattan Island. It's in Queens. But it is, my God, like we literally got off the subway and into Astoria and we were like, holy shit, like we want to live here. Like the vibes of the neighborhood were just like vibing, guys. It just felt so lively. There were people everywhere just like walking the streets, walking their dogs, big ass bike lanes. Like bike lanes that were the size of car lanes just for people to ride their bikes. And the diversity, so many different types of food. We saw, you know, Mediterranean, Greek, Indian, Italian, sushi. What the hell else did we see? Like, it was nuts. Like, it kind of felt like Houston, but different because it was just so lively. It was so beautiful. We walked down the street and we were finding a European grocery store, a Mediterranean grocery store, an Indian grocery store. We found the general grocery store that has everything. There were all of these little shops, guys, that were selling just only fruits and vegetables. It literally looked like a storybook from when I was a kid. It's just so cute and picturesque, and I just loved feeling like the feelings I was getting when I was there. And my husband felt the same way. got off the subway and we're like, damn. Which actually, fun fact, the subway in this neighborhood is actually above ground, not below. So I guess we call it the metro. So we decide that we're going to have lunch while we're there. We had time. We had like 2 hours until we were going to see this apartment. So we're like, okay, we'll have lunch and then we're going to walk around and explore. And we just kept loving it. We just kept loving every corner we turned around. And finally we're like, okay, let's go near the actual building. So it's 1:30. The guy said 2. Let's go ahead and just show up early and just snoop around and see what's exactly next door to the building we want to potentially live in. This is where things get crazy and so cool. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. We walk up and my husband goes, oh, see, there's a sign right there for the open house. And I look at the sign and I was like, no. I was like, that's not the real estate company that this guy works for. Because I was the one conversing with the real estate agent, not him. So he didn't know. I had no idea what this company was. And as soon as we look at it, this woman walks up to us. She goes, oh, hi, are you here for the open house? Remember, this is for the same building where our current listing showing is going to happen in half an hour. And we look at her and we're like, well, we're actually here to see a different unit, but why not? We have time. Like, let's just go check it out. So if you've seen Selling Sunsets, which we've seen every single season, plus we've seen Selling the OC, because we just love seeing houses, right? I could tell you right from the, after we left there, I knew for a fact that this realtor who was showing us this apartment, it was her very first listing because it was co-listed, and poor woman had no idea what she was doing. Because when we told her we were there to see a different apartment in the same building, she should have known that we were renters. And we didn't know when we were walking up to the second floor of this building that it was completely for sale. Like, it was empty. It was completely remodeled, guys. It was a beautiful apartment. It was not for rent. It was for sale. But this actually worked out so well in our favor. And we are looking at the building and we're looking at the apartment and we're like, wow, like this is actually really spacious. We're like, this is great. And we look in everywhere and it was very, very spacious, very, very beautiful. Because like I said, it was newly renovated. She even gave us a piece of paper that had all the info on it. And the info on the paper included how much the apartment was for sale for and how much it cost per square foot. So we were able to figure out how many square feet this specific unit was. And, out of everything else we viewed, that was one of the only ones we had that info on, only because we viewed an apartment that was for sale and they just happened to have the numbers. So we realized, we're like, okay, and I told my husband, I was like, I feel like this is the exact same layout as the one that we're going to look at. It's just on a different floor. What's really great about this building that we're in, first of all, like we said, we love the neighborhood. Second of all, it is a 7-minute walk from the metro station. That is yet another thing that you might want to pay attention to when you are looking for a place to live, which is why we like StreetEasy, which is where I actually found this specific unit, because walking more than 10 minutes, God, even 15. Some of the other apartments we looked at were like 15-minute walk from the metro. Guys, that adds up. That really adds up, especially after a long day. If you're carrying a lot of shit, it really adds up. So 7 minutes, beautiful. And besides that, we found out that there was laundry in the building and it was down in the basement. Bingo, that's exactly what I wanted. Cool. Oh, even better, they got an elevator. Woohoo! So that honestly is just that's just a bonus, right? Such a bonus. We don't need it, but it's great to have it, especially actually with moving in. So we leave this showing and then we get a call from the actual realtor we're supposed to be meeting and he has to cancel. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. The tenant had an emergency. I have to cancel. And we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. We already were in the building. There was another open house. Is it the same unit? And he asked us a question and we were like, yes. And he was like, okay, then it was the same unit. And I looked at Monish and I was like, brilliant. So I try to ask our realtor more questions, but he's busy. He's like, I got to call everybody else that I have to cancel on. I will get back to you later. And he hangs up. And I looked at Monish and I was like, this is our apartment. I was like, this is our apartment. This is the apartment that we want. This is it. This is it. And he was like, well, I still want to see it in person. I was like, yeah, that's fine. He said he'll reschedule, like he'll get back to us. That's fine. But it's the exact same layout and we really liked it. And y'all, it was over 700 square feet for a 1-bedroom. What? In New York, in Astoria? What? Wild. Like, that's large. Our current 2-bed, 2-bath is it's like in between 800 and 900 square feet. So we're really only losing about 100 square feet. Like, what? I'm so excited. That's like just another perk. So as the story continues, we go look elsewhere, which, you know, I showed you some videos of, and nothing is really getting us. We don't really love these neighborhoods. We don't really love these apartments. And this viewing happened was supposed to happen on Sunday. We're in Astoria on Sunday. And by Tuesday morning, I look at Monish and I said, let's put in an application. Let's just do it. Because the apartment had been on the market, I think maybe 4 days by that point. And I was like, let's just put it in and he'll get back to us on when we can see it in person. And worst case scenario, if we don't like it in person, then we just pull the application. And granted, guys, anytime you put in an application for an apartment, you have to pay, it's usually $20 per person for the credit check and background check. So, but I'm like $40, like, okay, that's fine. Like, we're not putting down the security deposit. Like, let's just do it. So we go ahead and Tuesday morning, we put in the application. Nobody has seen this apartment. Nobody. Because the first showing was supposed to be at 2 p.m. on Sunday and it was canceled. So we saw a similar unit on a different floor, but we didn't actually see the whole real one, but we saw something, right? Like, we saw something. So I hear back from the realtor later that day saying, oh, can you do tomorrow, which is Wednesday at 7 p.m. to see it? And we're like, yeah, sure. And I told Monish, I was like, I texted him saying that we filled out the application, but like he hasn't got back. Like, I don't want to bug him. Like, he says we'll see it tomorrow. We'll just go see it tomorrow. Fine. So the next day goes around and we show up and we are seeing the apartment with somebody else. There's a single woman there who's viewing it. She had previously lived in Astoria, moved to Brooklyn for a while, coming back to Astoria. So to me, that's a good sign that she loved the neighborhood, tried something else out for a little while and loved it so much. She was like, no, I'm coming back. So that's a good sign. After we're done viewing it, which the tenant was there, so I don't have any footage of that. So sorry, guys. I didn't want to be rude or disruptive or just intrusive on her space. Because, y'all, she still had everything set up. Like, my apartment currently right now is already in disarray getting ready for this move. She has to be gone by June 30th, and, like, she still had everything as normal. So I really hope she hired a good moving company to just pack it all up for her, because, oh my God, I can't even imagine. So we look at it, and I told Monish, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the one. This is our apartment. We want this place. So when we're leaving, we tell our realtor, like, we asked him, how many other people have put in applications? He says, nobody has. I'll send you the link. And I looked at Monish and I was like, we already have. He was like, what? I was like, yeah, we put in an application. We did it yesterday morning. He's like, are you sure? I was like, I'm positive. So I opened up the link from the email because he had sent an application link previously when I told him I was super interested in the apartment. And I showed it to him and he was like, oh, okay, well, send me an email and I'll check it when I get home. So we went to dinner and we went to this cute little Italian restaurant right around the corner. And I told the waiter, y'all, I told the server, I was like, yeah, we're moving to this area. Like, we're so excited. Like, I knew in my heart that this was our apartment. So we finally hear back from Spiro, that's our real estate agent, later that night and says, you know what? Like, I see the application is here. If you'd like, because there's such a high demand on this apartment, we can go ahead. If you give me what's called a good faith deposit, I will take it off the market so nobody else can apply. Which, for the good faith deposit, I will be very, very open about this. We had to give him $500. He told us that either at the lease signing, or if for some reason we're rejected, one or the other, that $500 either way is going to come back to us. But he just wants to hold on to that as a guarantee that yes, we want this apartment, and yes, if he's going to put work into it, that we're serious about it. That's what that is. So if you are looking for an apartment in New York and you're going through a realtor, it's a sublet, and they ask for a good faith deposit, you better be ready for that, because that means, yes, I want it, and I want it more than anybody else, so let's do it. So he took the good faith deposit, and then 2 days later, we hear back that we have been approved. We've been approved, and we are so excited. What also works out super great that I didn't mention before is that the move-in date is July 1st, and our move-out date is June 28th. And we're taking a road trip to get up there, which is going to actually take us an entire week. So it's perfect. We don't have to do any overlapping rents. It is so freaking perfect. So now what a lot of you have probably been waiting for is, let me go into detail on how the application process actually worked, because this is not your average apartment hunting or average apartment application. It's totally different. So let me run through all of that with you, and let's dive deep into what to expect. Okay, so I have my handy dandy pug notebook to go over a little bit about the process of actually applying, because it was a lot to just remember, so I wrote some things down for y'all. So first of all, the way that we were able to apply, he had just sent us a link, like I said. And with that, it was through a secure real estate profile type thing, which if you think about it, when you apply for apartments anywhere, it's an online application of some sort, right? So I do want to point out that I've been living in my current apartment for the last 3 years. So it has been 3 years since I've applied for an apartment anywhere. So if there are some things on this list that are actually normal everywhere, or if all of them are normal everywhere, then whoops, my bad. But either way, I'm putting it out there. I'm just letting you know what all we had to do and how it actually worked out in our favor for us. We'll kind of go over that stuff. So first thing that we needed was we had to supply our tax return from this year. So I feel like that is not normal. I don't remember doing that when applying for this apartment here in Texas. Could be wrong, but that was one of the things that we needed. Of course, we needed a photo ID, so we uploaded our photos of our driver's licenses. And then we had to have a letter of employment, which they actually use the term emolument. Like, they use a totally different word, but basically it's the same thing. Like a letter stating that you have a job and that you make money. So I'm going to pause and talk a little bit about that real quick, because we are in a unique situation right now where I was just a student who graduated and I do not have a full-time job. As soon as we move to New York, I will be looking for one and hopefully find one within the fashion industry. But my husband, on the other hand, he does have a full-time job. It's one where he has been, approved to work remotely in a new state, because his location is here in Houston, although he does usually work from home 99% of the time anyways. So he has requested the transfer of location, and they have went through with that. But what's also really great is we didn't know at the time that we were going to need this letter of employment, just proving from his employer that he has been working there since this date and makes this amount of money annually. That's really all you need. But what actually worked out so great for us, because we didn't have to wait to like submit to it would have been like a whole thing, guys. If we didn't have something on hand already, he would have had to submit to HR and wait for them to get back to him to then send it so then we could apply. Guys, time is ticking. Time is ticking. And like I said, the real estate, it's so competitive. We're just renters. We are just renters. And it is such a competitive market that there were some apartments that we would send a message for that we wanted to go view it. And by the time they were applied 6 hours later, it's already been off the market. Somebody had already applied and got approved and it's gone. And that is so freaking common. So listen up very closely to all of these things that you need. And guys, make sure you have them handy. You want them before you even go and start viewing these apartments, because you need to be ready to say, I want this. Here's all my documentation. Please let me have it now. Or else the next best person's going to come along and snatch it up first. So we got lucky because we had just been on our honeymoon in Greece, if you remember from the beginning of this video. And my husband, being born and raised in India, he still has an Indian passport. He's not a U.S. citizen just yet. So in order for him to go to Greece, he actually had to apply for a tourist visa through the Greece consulate here in Houston to get a visa to be able to go, right? And with that, he had to have a letter from his employer that stated when he started working for the company, how much he makes annually, and what day he's going to be returning back to work after the trip. So that third piece of information is not necessary for this type of thing, right? Like, it's not. You don't need, you're not going anywhere. You're renting an apartment. They want to know when you started and how much you make, and it has to have the official letterhead from HR, or if you don't have HR because you work for a smaller company, then the owner, the boss, whatever. Having that was so beautiful. It worked out perfect because he literally did his visa appointment a week and a half before we flew out. So it was fresh. It was recent. It was from May, and we were applying on like June 2nd. So it was valid. It worked. And even better, guys, even better, what worked out for us, which is just so beautiful, is that our real estate agent, he's actually Greek. He's from Greece. A lot of people in the Astoria borough actually are Greek, which is really cool because we loved the culture and everything while we were there. But our real estate agent also works at the Greek consulate. And we had told him that we were just in Greece. And so it's kind of cool that all of this really worked out, because when he read that letter, he knew it was for his visa, but he also knew it was still valid for the apartment. And that when we told him that we had been to Greece, like, now he's got more evidence that we're truth tellers, that we're not lying. Because apparently, guys, people lie on their applications for these apartments, which blows my mind, because they do a background check. So please don't lie. Don't lie about anything, because they're going to find out the truth, and that's going to just be really bad for you. Like, you just don't want that. You don't want to be known as somebody who lies on your application, because then when you do start telling the truth, like, the real estate community, who knows? Word might be spreading around about you. You just never know, and that's not something you want to chance. So you're going to need that, a letter of employment. You're also going to need bank statements. And they're going to do that credit check, which costs $20 for each of us, so $40 total. So those are all the things that you want to have handy. And like I said, it is crucial you have it ASAP. You don't want to find the perfect apartment and then have to wait 3 business days for your HR to get you the letter, and then somebody snatched it up instead. Like, that would suck. And I would hate for that to happen to you. We had no idea, so we just got lucky. But, like, don't chance it. If you're watching this, don't chance it. So we just really, really are so grateful that everything worked out so fabulously for us. We found out within 2 days, which he told us it would take 1 to 3 business days to find out whether or not we got approved. Ooh, lastly, before I go, this is really, really, really important. So When you are going to rent out and do a sublet and you are renting from somebody who owns, they will always have realtors do all of this for them, right? I keep calling Spiro our realtor. He wasn't ours. He was our landlord's. We were just working directly with him because we were interested in the apartment. But every single apartment that we went and viewed had a different real estate agent. They did. And so you're always going to work with somebody like that. Now, there are two big factors when it comes to working with a real estate agent. Well, I guess one, but hear me out. So when you are working with a real estate agent, which you will if you are subletting, there is a broker's fee. So if you are on StreetEasy, if you're going to use that app to start looking at apartments, then you can actually filter and you can turn on the no fee filter, and the no fee filter will filter out any of the apartments that require the tenant to pay the broker's fee, because it's not always a requirement. Now, there are apartments where the person who owns it, the landlord decides that they're going to pay the broker's fee so that the tenant does not have to. And there are a bunch of different reasons why that would occur. I have some theories. My theory is that a landlord would pay a broker's fee, one, if the condo is already fully paid off. If it's already fully paid off, then they'll pay that broker's fee because they just want a new tenant in there as fast as possible. Another reason why I think that there might be no fee is maybe it's been on the market too long and they really just need a tenant in there, and they're like, screw it, we will pay the broker's fee if that will get somebody in there faster. Because y'all, another thing that you need to have ready when you are looking for an apartment, you need to have first month's rent. You need to have a deposit, which just assume that your deposit is the same amount as your first month's rent, and you need to have a broker's fee ready too. Guys, that's 3 different payments. We had to send 3 different checks in the mail today so that we could secure this apartment along with our lease that we signed online. So, for example, for us, our budget, our original maxed out budget, let's just use that. Let's say I said $3,000. That's a round number. So if you are saying that you're going to pay no more than $3,000 a month for your rent, then you need to have $3,000 for rent for the first month, plus $3,000 for your deposit, plus another $3,000 for the broker's fee. So you need to have about $9,000 on hand, ready to cough up the moment they say that you've been approved. And guess what? Remember how I said I had to send a bank statement? On the bank statement, they can see whether or not I have that money in my account or not, because that's what the bank statement tells. So what we had done is we said, okay, well, we want to do an absolute max of $3,000. We really wanted to only do $2,800. We got really lucky. I'm going to be very open with you guys, and we are paying $2,600 for our apartment, and I'm so stoked. That's under budget, and that includes water and heat, which is really great. So we just have to pay for electricity and Wi-Fi and gas, because we're going to have a gas stove now, which is crazy, totally different than electric here in Houston. But anyways, so for us, we had to cough up 1 month's rent, deposit, and our broker's fee, all of that. And thankfully, we were very diligent with our savings, and we knew that we were going to have to at least have 1 month's rent, and like first and last is usually what they say. But I guess last is now gone and they're calling it just deposit. And then also we were like, we want to have 3 times. We want to have 3 times the amount, because we had no idea about this broker's fee, y'all. We really had no clue. So again, we got lucky in some areas that we just saved up 3 times what we thought we would be spending. And so we actually had enough to cover all of these things. But you are here watching this video, so you know better. You know better. You don't need to get lucky, because you're going to plan accordingly and you're going to find the best apartment and everything's going to be great. I just know it. So thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned because I am going to have some more videos along the way. We've got the process of packing up the apartment, of downsizing from a 2-bed, 2-bath to a 1-bed, 1-bath. Plus, like I had said, we are driving cross country. So we're going to drive from Houston, Texas, all the way to Queens, New York, in Astoria, where we are going to be living. And that is a whole thing in itself too. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and get ready for the next part of this journey to continue.